They told you that words don't really matter. They told you that actions speak louder, that thoughts create things, and that language is secondary. Just noise, just communication, just labels. They told you to stop being too sensitive when words cut deep, to brush it off, laugh it off, move on, as if words couldn't wound the soul or imprint the nervous system like scars no one else can see. They told you, it's just talk, don't take it personally, and maybe you believed them. But something in you knew better. Something in you felt the vibration shift when someone said your name with love or with disgust. Something in you felt the tremor of a single word echoing through your chest, your memory, your identity. Something in you remembered the truth, even if no one ever taught it to you. Words are not passive. Words are forces, and your voice is a spell. What if I told you that the most powerful rituals ever performed didn't require fire or blood or ancient relics, just breath, intention, and sound? What if I told you that entire civilizations believed that the world was spoken into existence and that those who mastered the voice could bend time, shape fate, open portals, summon healing, or destroy kingdoms? What if I told you that you've been speaking your reality into being this whole time, only no one ever showed you how to wield that power consciously? We live in a world obsessed with thinking, with logic, with planning, with manifesting through vision boards, spreadsheets, mantras you repeat without meaning. But the ancients knew something else. They knew that speech is the bridge between the invisible and the material. That when thought becomes word, vibration becomes form. That the breath carries spirit and the voice carries will. And yet, we speak as if our words are weightless. We say things we don't mean. We speak curses over our own bodies, our children, our dreams. We speak down to ourselves and then wonder why our self-worth erodes. We tell stories about our limitations, our failures, our fears, and then wonder why we feel trapped. We whisper doubts. We declare anxieties. We joke about our pain as if the joke cancels out the spell. We chant, I'm tired, I can't. I'm broke, I'm stuck. And then live in the house those words built. This isn't just psychological. It's energetic. It's spiritual. It's ancient. Across the world, sacred traditions were built around the mastery of the spoken word. In ancient Egypt, words were not mere sounds, they were laws. In the Vedas, sound is the seed of all matter. In Kabbalah, the letters of the Hebrew alphabet are literal blueprints of creation. In shamanic cultures, the right chant can open the body and heal the soul. In Sufism, repeating the name of God reshapes the heart. In Huna, the spoken word carries mana, spiritual power. In Toltec wisdom, being impeccable with your word is not moral advice, it's a mystical imperative. And in nearly every tradition, the same pattern emerges. The word is not decoration. The word is the wand. So how did we forget? Why were we taught to devalue the voice? Why were we trained to speak unconsciously, to talk without intention, to dilute the sacred into chatter? Perhaps because a population that speaks powerlessly is easier to control. Perhaps because keeping you unaware of your vibrational impact keeps you dependent on others to create for you. Perhaps because language is the original technology, and those who command it command reality. But you were never meant to be voiceless. You were never meant to echo someone else's fear, someone else's limitation, someone else's script. Your voice is unique. Your frequency is alive. And every word you speak ripples out like a prayer or a poison. So here is the truth. Every sentence you speak carries architecture. Every story you tell about your life becomes its foundation. Every casual phrase becomes a thread in the reality you're weaving. And this isn't just spiritual metaphor. Modern science is starting to catch up, showing us how sound alters physical matter, how intention affects molecular structure, how the brain and body respond differently to different kinds of language. But long before the studies, the ancient ones already knew. They knew that to speak was to activate a force. They knew that the tongue could be a blade and/or a balm. They knew that silence is sacred, but speech, when aligned, is divine. And now so do you. This video is not here to teach you how to be positive all the time. It's not about pretending everything's okay or using affirmations to avoid your truth. This is about remembering that your voice was designed to shape light, to move energy, to build and unbuild, to bless and release, to awaken sleeping codes that lie dormant in your breath. In the next chapters of this journey, we'll walk through the hidden knowledge that was once passed only from teacher to initiate. We'll explore how the word was used by Egyptian priests, Vedic seers, Hebrew mystics, indigenous shamans, and spiritual scientists from traditions you may never have heard of. And we'll ask, what does it mean to speak with soul? What does it mean to reclaim your word? What would happen if you began to treat your voice as holy? Stay until the end, because by the final topic, you will not only understand the power of the word, you will feel it. You will remember that your mouth is not just an organ. It is an altar, a gateway, a portal of becoming. So take a breath, feel the energy move in your chest, and prepare to remember what the world tried to make you forget. Let us begin. In ancient Egypt, words were not decorations. They were not filler between thoughts. They were not casual. They were not careless. In ancient Egypt, to speak was to summon, to command, to create. The spoken word was understood as the breath of life, and the breath in Egyptian mysticism was spirit itself, what they called Sekhem. It was believed that every sound uttered into the world left an imprint in the invisible realm and echoed into the visible one. There was no such thing as a neutral word. All speech was magic. At the center of this sacred system stood a god, one you've probably heard of, even if you never knew the depth of what he truly represented. Thoth, scribe of the gods, lord of writing, keeper of divine knowledge. But more than that, Thoth was the master of the spoken word. He was the one who spoke the world into order when the cosmos was still chaos. According to the Hermetic tradition, named after the Greek counterpart of Thoth, Hermes Trismegistus, creation itself began not with action, but with vibration. With thought, yes, but thought made audible. The universe was formed, they taught, through the Logos. Logos is a word that would later be used in Christian and Greek mystical traditions to mean the word. But in Hermetic Egypt, Logos wasn't just speech. It was the expression of divine mind, the invisible made manifest, the infinite condensed into form through frequency. Creation was not seen as a physical event. It was a mental and spiritual process, and the voice, human or divine, was the vehicle of that transformation. When the gods wanted something to exist, they didn't build it, they named it, and in doing so, they called it into being. In this worldview, naming was not a label. It was an act of power. A name was the essence of a thing. To speak the true name of something was to connect with its inner being, its energy, its purpose. This is why, in many Egyptian rituals, priests would chant the hidden names of deities, planets, stars, and even emotions, not as worship, but as activation. They weren't praying to the gods. They were communing with the frequencies that those gods represented. Each word was a portal, each utterance a bridge between realms. And the most powerful of all words were never spoken in public. They were reserved for temples, for initiations, for moments when energy had to be precisely shaped, because even one misplaced syllable could alter the flow of spiritual current. Hieroglyphs, Egypt's sacred script, weren't just artistic symbols. They were living codes. Each image held vibrational meaning. When read aloud, they didn't just tell stories. They invoked energies. They brought the past into the present and bent the future toward intention. To the Egyptians, the tongue was a wand. The breath, divine fire. The act of speech, alchemy. But the Hermetic tradition went deeper still. In Hermetic philosophy, everything in the universe is mind. The universe is mental. That's the first principle. And if all is mind, then the word is how the mind moves. It's how the unseen creates the seen. It's the channel through which intention becomes matter. So what does that mean for us? It means that your voice is not just your voice. It is a thread connecting your inner world to the outer one. It means that the stories you tell about yourself, even jokingly, are not harmless. They're programming your reality. It means that when you say, "I can't," the universe takes it as instruction. When you say, "I am," you are laying a cornerstone in the foundation of your being. It means that the Egyptian magicians who whispered chants into the wind were not performing superstition. They were performing physics of the soul. It means that the act of speaking is sacred technology. But most of us were never taught this. We inherited language as noise. We were never initiated into its power. We were never shown that our words are currents that carve channels into the energetic landscape of our lives. We speak like chaos. And then we wonder why the world around us feels so disordered. But the Hermeticists knew that to restore order, we must return to the word, the pure word, the intentional word. The word that arises from stillness and speaks only what it wishes to become real. This is not about being polite. This is not about avoiding negativity. This is about power. Real, ancient, vibrational power. In Egypt, this power was woven into everything, from temple inscriptions to healing ceremonies, from myths of creation to spells of protection. Words were treated like sacred instruments, finely tuned to shift the frequencies of the cosmos. And today, in our time of endless distraction, of constant noise and meaningless chatter, this memory stirs again. You feel it. That your voice was never meant to be idle. That every word you speak is an echo of the Logos. That when you open your mouth, you are not just making sound. You are weaving reality. And you get to choose what kind of world you want your words to build. Now let's journey to another ancient world, one where the alphabet itself was sacred, and every letter held the code of creation. We now enter the realm of the Hebrew mystics, and the language that God Himself spoke. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. This is not just a poetic line from the Gospel of John. It's a direct echo of something far older, a mystical teaching buried deep within the ancient Hebrew tradition. A secret whispered in sacred spaces, encrypted in the geometry of the Hebrew alphabet, and protected for centuries by those who understood that language was never just about communication. It was about creation. In the Kabbalistic worldview, the world did not emerge from chaos by accident. It was spoken into being, deliberately, precisely, vibrationally. The Hebrew alphabet, known as the Aleph Bet, was not invented. It was received. Each letter was understood to be a vessel of divine energy, a fractal of creation, a living force. Not symbols, not marks on parchment, but spiritual beings, encoded with meaning and power. There are 22 of them. And according to the Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Formation, these 22 letters are the building blocks of all that exists. They correspond to the elements, the planets, the signs, the paths of the tree of life. They vibrate. They speak. They live. The letters were believed to precede even time itself. Before the stars, before the soil, before breath, there was Aleph, there was Mem, there was Shin. And God did not make the universe. God spoke it, not in English, not in metaphor, in sacred sound. Let there be light was not just a sentence. It was a vibration formed by divine intention shaped through specific letters, each one a tuning fork of creation. In Hebrew mysticism, a name is never just a name. It is essence. To know someone's true name is to access their soul signature. To speak it with sacred intention is to touch the root of their being. This is why the divine name of God, often written as Yod-He-Vav-He, was treated with reverence, secrecy, and awe. Not out of fear, but because its utterance literally shifts reality. Some Kabbalists taught that even thinking, The divine name set subtle changes into motion, realigning frequencies, healing distortions, awakening dormant codes within the speaker and the space. This tradition didn't end with ancient mystics in desert caves. It continued through the transmission of Kabbalah, an oral and written lineage that explored how language, sound, and intention form the spiritual DNA of the world. Chanting Hebrew prayers wasn't about religious ritual. It was resonance work. Each syllable shaped the inner and outer world simultaneously, and the Hebrew letters, when arranged into words of power, became portals through which divine energy flowed into the human realm. Kabbalists would meditate on single letters for hours: Aleph, the silent breath of origin; Bet, the house of creation; Shin, the fire of transformation. They would visualize them glowing with light, vibrating with energy, opening gates in consciousness. These letters weren't passive. They were alive. And to speak them was to participate in the original act of creation. In many Kabbalistic texts, there is a deep warning: do not speak what you do not mean. Do not invoke names you do not understand. Do not combine letters carelessly, because once released, a word cannot be taken back. Its echo lives on in the fabric of the world. How many words have we spoken without awareness? How many careless thoughts have we sealed into form with the force of our voice? How many spells have we cast, unknowingly, by misusing the sacred instrument of speech? In Kabbalah, the tongue is seen as a sword, but also a flute, also a wand. It can cut, it can charm, it can destroy, or it can open the gates of Eden, and that choice is always yours. Today we scroll, we post, we comment. We fill the air with noise. We mock what's sacred. We dilute the vibrational potency of language with distraction and sarcasm. We say we want change, but we keep speaking the same spells. But the Hebrew mystics knew a different way. They knew that to reshape your life, you must first reshape your language. To step into a new reality, you must first speak it into motion. To remember the divine within you, you must learn to use your voice like a sacred flame, not a flickering match in the dark, but a torch that lights the way back home. The letters are still alive. The code is still within you. And the moment you begin to speak with awareness, it begins to unlock. Next, we'll journey into another ancient civilization, one that saw sound as the seed of all form, where vibration was not theory but sacred reality, where a single syllable, Om, was believed to hold the blueprint of the cosmos. Let us step now into the wisdom of the Vedas. Let us remember Vak, the goddess of speech, and rediscover the power of mantras, breath, and the primordial voice of creation. Long before modern science spoke of frequency, before psychology explored affirmations, before neuroscience mapped the brain's response to language, there were the Vedas, ancient texts whispered through time, not written to be understood, but to be experienced. They weren't just teachings, they were transmissions, vibrations encoded in syllables that reached beyond thought and straight into the soul. At the heart of this sacred body of knowledge was one truth: sound is the seed of all things. In the Vedic cosmology, before matter, before form, before time itself, there was vibration. That vibration became sound, and that sound became Amar. Om was not a word, it was the word. Not something you say, but something you become. To chant Om was to realign yourself with the pulse of the universe. It wasn't performance, it was remembrance. It was attunement. Om was understood as the original sound of creation, the sacred syllable that echoed from the divine and rippled into the patterns of galaxies, the spirals of DNA, the rhythms of breath and heartbeat. This was not symbolic poetry. This was energetic reality. The sages didn't believe in Om. They heard it, within themselves, in nature, in the silence behind the noise. And they knew that speech, Vak, was not merely an instrument of communication. Vak was a goddess, a force, a deity that lived within the breath and beyond the mind. Vak, the goddess of speech, was said to precede even the gods themselves. She was the voice of truth, the power of invocation, the breath of creation. She did not just express reality, she shaped it. According to the Rig Veda, Vak is the mother of mantras. She is the spark within every sacred word. When invoked, she aligns the speaker with Dharma, the cosmic order. To speak in harmony with Vak was to speak from soul. To speak against her was to create distortion, illusion, suffering. The Vedic sages practiced this with reverence. They didn't speak for effect. They spoke for alignment. Every mantra was crafted with precision, not just by meaning, but by vibration. Each syllable was a key, each pause a portal, each breath an offering. When they chanted, Soham, I am that, they weren't reciting affirmations. They were activating the memory of unity between the self and the divine. When they chanted Om Namah Shivaya, I bow to the inner self, they weren't performing religion. They were awakening the inner flame. Mantra means that which liberates the mind. It doesn't just inspire, it reprograms, not by logic, but by resonance. Mantras bypass the analytical brain. They reach into the energetic blueprint of your being. They reshape the subtle body. They align your consciousness with higher states. It's why repetition matters, why devotion sharpens the frequency, why pronunciation is sacred. Even modern science is beginning to validate what the rishis always knew. That chanting calms the nervous system. That repetition of mantras balances hemispheres of the brain. That sound alters heart rate variability, hormonal flow, and emotional states. But the ancients weren't doing it for health benefits. They chanted to remember who they were. They used sound to bridge the illusion of separation, to dissolve the veil between self and spirit. To speak as the divine, not just to it. And they understood something modern culture has forgotten. The quality of your speech reflects the quality of your inner state. If your words are rushed, fragmented, hollow, it mirrors your disconnection. But when speech flows with presence, intention, and vibration, it becomes a sacred act, a ritual, a calling. The Vedas taught that the universe was built through Shabda, divine sound, and mantras were blueprints of that sacred architecture. They are not spells to control the world. They are reminders that you are the world, sounding itself into form. So when you speak, you are not simply making noise. You are tuning the instrument of your soul. You are aligning with the eternal hum of being. But what happens when that sacred power is misused? When words are no longer offered in reverence but in ego? When speech is no longer a bridge to spirit, but a weapon against self and others? The Vedas warned against this too. They spoke of vaktapas, speech discipline, a practice of purifying one's voice, one's language, one's inner tone, because they knew that careless words don't just fall, they land. And where they land, they plant seeds. Some seeds bloom into liberation, others into suffering. The choice is always yours. To speak like a victim of language, or to speak like a channel of divinity. So the next time you open your mouth, pause. Feel the breath. Feel the vibration rising from your chest. Ask yourself, is this aligned? Is this coming from soul? Because when speech is aligned with truth, it becomes creation. And when creation begins with sacred sound, the entire universe listens. Next, we'll explore how the shamans of the earth, the guardians of plants, animals, and spirit, use the voice not just to call but to heal, not just to name, but to awaken. We enter now the realm of chant medicine, of whispered prayers and healing songs. Let us walk into the heart of the shamanic voice, and remember what it means to sing the world back into harmony. In the deep jungles of the Amazon, in the frozen tundras of Siberia, on the windswept plains of North America, across deserts, mountains, islands, and riverbanks, there have always been those who carried songs that weren't written down. Songs that were received, not composed. Songs that didn't merely entertain, but opened gateways. These were not musicians. They were shamans, keepers of breath, guardians of sound. To the shaman, the voice is not an artistic expression. It is a spiritual instrument. And speech is not for information. It is for invocation. In shamanic cultures, language is alive. It is not neutral. Words carry spirit. To speak is to breathe soul into the world. To name is to awaken the essence of what is named. Among the Shipibo people of the Amazon, the medicine songs sung during ceremonies are called icaros. These are not rehearsed melodies. They are downloaded vibrations. Each icaro is a frequency encoded in sound, revealed through deep communion with plant spirits, ancestors, and invisible forces. When a shaman sings an icaro, they're not performing. They're weaving. They are directing energy through the voice, clearing blockages, calling in protection, activating the memory of wholeness in the listener. In these cultures, it is said that plants teach songs, that rivers have melodies, that the wind whispers codes, and that the shaman's role is not to create, but to listen deeply and transmit what they hear. The voice, then, becomes a bridge between dimensions, between seen and unseen, between human and divine. The intention behind the sound is everything. A song sung with fear creates chaos. A chant whispered with faith can remove illness. A word spoken with clarity can shift the very direction of a soul's path. In North American indigenous traditions, the medicine wheel is turned through prayer, chant, and drumming. Each sound, rhythm, and syllable is aligned with a direction, an element, a spirit. In the Andean highlands, the Pacos, or Andean priests, offer words to the mountain spirits, the Apus, and to Pachamama, the Earth Mother. These are not poetic rituals, they are dialogues. The earth is listening, the mountains are aware. And words, when offered with reverence, are received and responded to. The same is true in Siberian shamanism, where the drum and voice together are used to journey beyond the veil. The sound becomes the vehicle, and the voice, once aligned, guides the soul across planes of consciousness. In all these traditions, there's one truth echoed over and over. The voice heals, but only when it is used in alignment with heart, spirit, and intention. A shaman's voice is not just trained, it is initiated. It is softened through surrender, sharpened through silence, empowered through communion. Many shamans spend years in solitude, fasting, listening, not to practice the voice, but to purify the channel. Because they know that the power is not in the volume or in the melody, it is in the vibration behind the word. Even whispering, when done with presence, can shift reality. What would it mean for us to reclaim this? To remember that your voice is not just a sound you make, but a frequency you carry, that every time you speak, you are projecting energy into space, into people, into plants, into spirits, into the very field of life itself. What if your words are the medicine someone else has been waiting to hear? What if your silence has also been healing? In many shamanic traditions, it is taught that there are songs for everything. Songs to open the heart, songs to call the rain, songs to guide the dead, songs to birth a child, songs to walk through fear, songs to release the past, songs to find the soul. And these songs don't come from the ego. They come from listening, deep listening. And in that listening, a different kind of speech is born. One that doesn't divide, it reconnects. One that doesn't explain, it reveals. One that doesn't impose, it harmonizes. In modern life, we've replaced this with noise. We've filled silence with clutter. We've disconnected our words from our breath from our body from our spirit. But the voice remembers. Your voice remembers. It remembers a time when to speak was to offer healing, when to sing was to shift weather, when to name was to awaken, when language was a sacred trust, not a casual transaction. So the next time you speak, pause, not just to think, but to listen. Is your voice carrying healing or harm? Are you speaking from habit or from spirit? Because in the shamanic world, every word is a spell, every chant a ceremony, every whisper a message carried on the wind. And when spoken with the heart wide open, your voice can become the sound that brings the world back into harmony. Now, we journey to a different tradition, one rooted in temples and gospels, filled with symbols of light, breath, and resurrection. Let us now enter the realm of Christian mysticism and explore the sacred mystery of the Word made flesh. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. For many, these are just the opening lines of the Gospel of John, a poetic way to begin a sacred text. But for mystics, theologians, and seekers throughout the centuries, these words hold a cosmic mystery, a key to understanding not just Scripture, but reality itself. This is not metaphor, it is metaphysics. In Christian mysticism, the Word, referred to in Greek as the Logos, is not just divine speech. It is divine essence made manifest. It is the bridge between the unmanifest and the manifest, between the unknowable and the known, between spirit and form. The Logos is not merely sound, it is will, it is light, it is intention moving into structure. In the beginning was not a bang, not a plan, not a design. In the beginning was a vibration, the Word, not any word, but the vibration of divine intelligence choosing to become something. And that something was everything. And then, the Word became flesh. This is the great mystery of the incarnation, not just of Jesus, but of reality itself. The idea that something so vast, so infinite, so formless, could become matter, could become visible, could become human, through vibration, through intention, through speech. In this view, Jesus is not just the Savior, he is the embodied Word, a walking frequency, a human being fully aligned with divine vibration. His miracles were not tricks or displays of power. They were consequences of spiritual resonance. He spoke, and things happened. Not because he was loud, but because his word carried alignment. Rise, be healed. Go, your faith has made you whole. Lazarus, come forth. Each of these phrases, short and simple, echoed with deep authority, with spiritual attunement, with complete congruence between intention, vibration, and will. Jesus did not speak to manipulate. He spoke to reveal. He spoke to activate. He spoke to remember on our behalf the sound of truth. And those who were open shifted. Their bodies, their minds, their lives. But Christian mysticism did not end with Jesus. Throughout history, mystics like Meister Eckhart, Hildegard of Bingen, John of the Cross, and Teresa of Avila explored the power of the Word as both a spiritual force and an internal experience. They wrote of inner silence, of divine speech, of hearing God not outside, but within. They knew that the Word is not just what you say, it is what you are tuned to. And when your speech aligns with love, something opens. This is why prayer was never meant to be performance. It was communion, a way of aligning the voice with the divine frequency, not to get what you want, but to remember what you are. Confession was not simply admission, it was release. Worship was not obligation, it was vibration. Preaching was not persuasion, it was transmission. When done from alignment, the voice becomes a vessel, and through that vessel the sacred speaks again. But it is not only priests and prophets who carry this power. Every one of us is a temple, and every time we speak, something is being born. So what are you giving birth to? What are you incarnating with your words? Are your sentences flesh made of fear? Are your declarations coated in doubt? Are you repeating the gospel of lack, of limitation, of unworthiness? Or are you allowing the Word to move through you as light? This path invites something radical, not just to speak differently, but to live differently. to live as if your voice is sacred, to live as if each word you say builds a part of the world, to live as if the divine lives within your breath and wants to speak through you, not to perform miracles but to restore harmony. The power of blessing, of benediction, is central in Christianity. To bless is to call forth the sacred in another, to affirm their divinity, to seal them in light. But how often do we curse without realizing it? When we speak in anger, fear, sarcasm, or bitterness, what are we creating? When we say someone is hopeless, a mess, a burden, what are we vibrating into reality? The mystics knew that we are always praying. Every sentence is a prayer, every word a seed, every tone a prophecy, and the question is not whether your words have power. The question is whether you are using that power in alignment with your soul. So speak with reverence. Speak with clarity. Speak with love. Let your voice become a sanctuary. Let your words become sacraments. Let your language carry the scent of truth. And like the mystics, you may find that as your speech transforms, so does your life. Now we journey across oceans once again to the islands of the Pacific, where the voice is more than communication. It is mana, life force, and sacred lineage. Let us now enter the wisdom of Huna and rediscover how 4 simple phrases can realign the soul, heal the past, and reconnect us to the spirit of forgiveness and power. On the islands of Hawaii, long before colonization, before tourists, before English was ever spoken, there existed a sacred understanding, passed from elder to child, from kahuna to initiate. It was the understanding that words are not just sound. They are carriers of mana. Mana is not easily translated. Some call it power. Others, life force. Others, still, divine essence. But in the wisdom of Huna, the esoteric spiritual tradition of ancient Hawaii, mana is the energy that animates all things. It flows through earth, ocean, body, and voice. And your words, when spoken with intention, either cultivate mana or leak it. To speak without awareness was to waste mana. To lie was to fracture it. To gossip was to poison it. But to speak truthfully, lovingly, and consciously was to strengthen your connection with spirit, with others, and with yourself. In Huna, the voice is not just a means of getting what you want. It is a tool of healing, a mirror of alignment, a living current of energy moving from your heart to the world around you. Perhaps the most famous practice from this lineage is Ho'oponopono. 4 phrases, simple, deceptively simple. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. These words are not affirmations, they are activations. Each one opens a channel, clears a blockage, realigns the energetic pathways between souls, and not just outwardly, but within. In modern understanding, Ho'oponopono is often used as a personal practice to clear resentment, grief, guilt, and conflict. You repeat the phrases either toward someone else or toward yourself, and something begins to shift. Not because magic is happening out there, but because your words are releasing tension or restoring flow and calling back mana. The ancient kahunas understood that relationships are threads of energy, and when those threads are tangled by judgment, shame, blame, or silence, life force stops flowing freely. Words become the scissors that cut the knots, or the salve that heals the wound, but only when spoken with true presence. Ho'oponopono is not about manipulation. It's not about forcing forgiveness. It's about returning to harmony, what the Hawaiians called pono'o. To live in pono is to live in alignment with self, with others, with spirit, and with the land. When you speak from pono, your words carry mana, and mana blesses what it touches. In Huna, this principle extended beyond forgiveness rituals. Every interaction was infused with spiritual awareness. When elders spoke, they chose their words carefully, as if planting seeds in the air. When children spoke, they were reminded to speak with the breath of respect, to not waste their mana on meaningless noise. Silence was honored, speech was sacred, language was ceremony. Even greetings carried mana. Aloha, so much more than hello. Aloha is the sharing of breath. Ha is the breath of life. To say aloha is to offer a piece of your essence, your presence, your spirit. Imagine that. A culture where a simple greeting is an exchange of soul energy. Contrast that with our world today where words are thrown, shouted, typed without thought, scrolled through, copied, diluted. But the voice remembers. Your voice remembers. The wisdom of Huna reminds us, when you speak from ego, your words drain you. When you speak from spirit, your words fill you. When you speak without alignment, the energy fragments. When you speak with love, the energy expands. So ask yourself, do your words restore ponomar or disturb it? Are you speaking to connect or to control? Are you using your voice to call in light or to cast shadows? There is great power in softness, great healing in humility, great magic in 4 simple phrases repeated with an open heart. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. Say them slowly. Feel them as vibration. Let them clear the stagnant rivers inside you. Let them soften your edges. Let them return you to flow. Because when you speak with mana, you do not need to raise your voice. The energy speaks for you. The vibration carries further than volume ever could. And in that stillness, in that reverence, in that humility, you remember, your voice was never meant to dominate. It was meant to harmonize. Now let us travel to the ancient highlands of Mexico, to the wisdom of the Toltecs, to a lineage that taught the greatest spiritual act was this: be impeccable with your word, because your word is your magic. There is a phrase that echoes through the modern world like a mantra, though few understand the depth of where it comes from. Be impeccable with your word. It sounds simple, almost too simple. A catchy piece of advice, perhaps, something you might find in a self-help book or on a coffee mug. But these words are not modern. They are ancient. They are Toltec. The Toltecs were a lineage of seers, mystics, and artists of consciousness who lived in what is now central Mexico. Before the rise of the Aztec Empire, before Spanish conquest, the Toltecs cultivated a spiritual path rooted in mastery, of perception, of energy, of being. To be a Toltec was not to belong to a tribe. It was to walk a path of remembering, a path of clarity, a path of truth. And at the very foundation of this path was one commandment above all: be impeccable with your word. But what does that really mean? In the Toltec understanding, the word is not simply what we say, it is what we vibrate. It is the energy we send into the world. It is the frequency we cast into the field around us. It is our magic. Your word is your wand. To speak is to cast. To name is to summon. To declare is to create. The Toltecs taught that every word is a seed, and the mind is fertile ground. Whatever you plant, truth or lie, love or poison, will take root. Not only in others, but in yourself. And so, when you speak with carelessness, with judgment, with resentment, you are not just harming others. You are casting spells upon yourself. Most people speak against themselves all day long. They say, I'm so stupid. I'll never get it right. I'm not good enough. No one cares. I'm always behind. This is too hard. I can't. And the Toltecs would say, so it is. Not because these things are objectively true, but because your word is shaping your reality. Because the subconscious mind does not argue, it accepts. Because when you speak something with emotion, you are binding yourself to that vibration. This is black magic. Yes, the Toltecs believed in magic, but not in the way modern fantasy portrays it. To them, magic was nothing more than the ability to shape reality through energy. And the most powerful energy available to the human being? The word. They taught that we are all magicians, but most of us are unconscious ones, casting dark spells not out of malice, but out of habit. programming ourselves and others with limitation, fear, scarcity, and shame. But when you become impeccable with your word, you shift. You stop using language to manipulate. You stop using it to mask your pain. You stop gossiping. You stop complaining. You stop scattering your energy through meaningless talk. Instead, you begin to speak from presence, from intention, from love. To be impeccable does not mean to be perfect. It means to be in integrity. It means that your word aligns with your truth, that your voice reflects your soul, not your wounds, and it begins with how you speak to yourself. The Toltecs taught that your inner dialogue creates your outer experience, that if you want to change your life, you must first change your language. Not only the words you say aloud, but the ones you whisper to yourself in the quiet moments. In the mirror, in the silence. How you speak to yourself is how you teach others to speak to you. How you name yourself is how you shape your identity. How you describe your life is how your nervous system will experience it. When you say, "This is my burden," the body contracts. When you say, "This is my path," the body opens. When you say, "I'm not enough," your energy collapses. When you say, "I'm learning," your energy expands. The Toltecs knew this. They lived it. They trained in it. Their rituals involved silence, not because they were afraid to speak, but because they understood the power of restraint, the potency of stillness, the weight of a single, well-placed word. To speak too much is to leak energy. To speak with awareness is to direct energy. Impeccability means your word becomes a beam of light, precise, illuminating, healing. But it also means you become responsible. Once you understand that your words shape reality, you can no longer pretend that what you say doesn't matter. You begin to see that every sentence is a spell, that every conversation is an exchange of power, that your voice can build bridges or burn them, that your language can be a weapon or a blessing. And the Toltecs remind us that what you say about others, you say to yourself. When you speak ill of someone, you are lowering your own vibration. When you spread gossip, you are injecting poison into your own psyche. When you lie, even to protect yourself, you fragment your energy. But when you speak with truth, something shifts. Your words begin to carry weight. People listen differently. You begin to trust your own voice again. You begin to respect the silence between words. And in that silence, you hear yourself more clearly. The Toltec path is not loud. It is refined. It is clear. It is grounded. It teaches that the way you speak is the way you walk through the world. That your word is your bond, not just with others, but with the universe. That to be careless with your speech is to be careless with your magic. So be impeccable, not to impress, not to control, but to align. Speak only what you want to see. Name only what you want to live. Declare only what you want to invite in, because every word is a thread, and your life is the tapestry. Next, we cross to another sacred tradition, one that echoes through minarets, dances through the spinning of dervishes, and lives in the breath of the faithful. Let us now enter the path of Islam and Sufism, and discover how one word, be, gave birth to creation. In the heart of Islamic mysticism lies a word so powerful, so concise, and so mysterious that it echoes not just through scripture, but through creation itself. Kun, it means be, one syllable, two letters in Arabic. A divine command that, according to the Quran, sparked the unfolding of all existence. God says be, and it is. This is not metaphor, it is revelation. In the Islamic worldview, creation is not the product of mechanical design, but of divine will expressed through the vibrational force of the spoken word. The command kun is not simply speech, it is activation. It is the moment where the formless responds to intention and becomes form. To speak in this tradition is to participate in the creative breath of God, and yet, this sacred power is not only found in the divine mouth. It lives in the breath of the devotee. in the chants of the mystic, in the rhythm of prayer. It lives in the practice of dhikr. Dhikr means remembrance. It is the repetition of the names of God, the recitation of divine attributes, the weaving of sacred syllables into the fabric of your consciousness. It is not done for performance, nor out of obligation. It is done to tune the soul, to vibrate the self back into alignment with the source. Ya Rahman, O Most Merciful. Ya Nur, O Light. Ya Wadud, O Lover. Ya Haq, O Truth. Each name of God is seen as an aspect of divine presence. When spoken with intention, with love, with devotion, these names are not merely remembered. They are awakened within you and around you. In Sufism, the mystical branch of Islam, dhikr is not just a practice, it is a path. Through repetition of these divine names, the soul polishes itself. The heart begins to beat in rhythm with the beloved. The ego dissolves. And what remains is vibration. Pure, sacred, lucid vibration. Some perform dhikr silently, inwardly, with the breath. Others chant aloud in groups, their voices rising and falling like waves, merging into a single ocean of devotion. And then, there are the whirling dervishes, spinning in circles, arms extended, heads tilted. They dance the dhikr into being. Their movement becomes breath, and their breath becomes prayer. The voice may fall silent, but the body becomes a word, a living utterance of surrender. In this tradition, the voice is never separated from the heart. To speak without presence is to profane the divine, but to speak with sincerity, with humility, with awe, that is to echo God. Even in the 5 daily prayers of Islam, every word is vibrational architecture. The recitation of the Quran is not only to be read, but to be sung. Its rhythm, tone, and cadence are sacred. Its sound is healing. Its vibration is alignment. Studies have shown that listening to Quranic recitation alters brainwaves, calms the nervous system, and opens the emotional body. But for the faithful, this is not surprising. They have known for centuries what science is only now discovering: that divine speech carries power, that sacred sound shifts the soul. In Sufi poetry, Rumi wrote of the power of the voice to bridge heaven and earth. His verses, still recited today, are a form of dhikr in their own right, reminding us that love is not a feeling, but a vibration. That longing is not weakness, but a call to resonance. And that the voice, when stripped of ego, becomes a flute through which the divine breathes. But just as dhikr can elevate, other forms of speech can degrade. In Islam, great emphasis is placed on guarding the tongue. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "Whoever believes in God and the last day should speak good or remain silent." Silence, in this tradition, is not absence. It is restraint. It is a sign of strength. Because to misuse the tongue is to squander the gift of creation. To lie, to slander, to mock, to curse, these are seen not only as social sins but as spiritual toxins. The tongue, it is said, is small in size, but great in impact. And so the path of mastery begins with awareness. Awareness of tone, awareness of intention, awareness of what is being planted in the soul through each syllable. The Sufi does not speak to be heard. The Sufi speaks to echo truth, to mirror the divine, to become so empty of ego that every word becomes a fragrance of the beloved. This is the path of the word as devotion, the word as prayer, the word as remembering, the word as light. And you don't have to be Muslim to feel this. You don't have to recite Arabic to sense the vibration. Because at the core of all sacred speech lies the same impulse: to return, to come home to the sound that gave you life. So when you speak, ask yourself, does this bring me closer to truth? Closer to love? Closer to what I am beyond my name, my title, my form? Because you are not your voice. You are the breath behind it. You are the silence from which it rises. You are the command made flesh. Be. Let it be. Now we journey into the final wisdom before the closing of this circle. A tradition that holds silence as sacred, and sound as medicine, a path that teaches that the more aligned the word, the less of it is needed. Let us step into the river of Tao and remember the art of saying less and meaning more. The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. With these opening lines, the Tao Te Ching invites us into one of the most profound paradoxes in spiritual history. The truth cannot be captured in words, and yet, we must speak. What do we do then, in a world where language is our primary tool for connection, understanding, and influence? The Taoist answer is not to reject words, but to refine them, to empty them of excess, to return them to their origin, not as noise, but as breath, not as control, but as flow. In Taoist philosophy, the Tao is the source of all things. It is the way, the invisible current that animates the 10,000 things. It cannot be seen or grasped, only felt, only aligned with. And one of the most direct ways to feel the Tao is through breath. Taoists teach that the breath is the closest bridge between the formless and the form. It enters and leaves without resistance. It nourishes without demand. It flows without ambition. The breath, like the Tao, teaches us how to be. And from this breath comes sound. Sound, in Taoist healing traditions, is not merely vibration. It is medicine. Each organ in the body is associated with an element, an emotion, and a sound that can harmonize it. These are called the 6 healing sounds. SSS for the lungs, Shu for the liver, Ha for the heart, Hu for the kidneys, Hu for the spleen, He for the triple burner. These sounds are not intellectual, they are felt. Practiced with intention, visualization, and breath, they help clear stagnant qi, balance the emotions, and restore the inner landscape to harmony. This is the Taoist way, not to suppress or control, but to release, to return the system to flow. To the Taoist, sound must emerge from stillness. Words must arise from presence. If not, they are not aligned with the way. The more we speak, the more likely we are to fall out of sync. This is why the sages of the Tao prized silence, not as repression but as power, not as emptiness, but as fullness. The sage speaks little, and when they do, every word carries the weight of mountains. Because when you align with the Tao, you don't need to persuade. You radiate. You don't need to argue. You embody. You don't need to decorate your language with complexity. You return to simplicity. You say what is true, what is necessary, what is light. This is called Wu Wei, effortless action. Even in speech, Wu Wei applies. Speaking without force, without distortion, without agenda. Let the words emerge like water from a spring, not pushed, not controlled, but flowing naturally from the depth of stillness. In this tradition, a wise person is known not for their eloquence, but for their restraint. Not for how much they say, but for how much they hear. Not for how clearly they explain, but for how purely they reflect. Taoism teaches that the more we try to name things, the more we move away from their truth. The word is a map, but it is not the territory. The symbol is a guide, but it is not the thing itself. So speak, but know the limits of speech. Name, but remember what lies beyond the name. This is not to say words have no power. They do. They shape perception. They signal energy. They open or close doors. But their true power is only unlocked when they flow from alignment with the Tao. This alignment does not require a stage, an audience, or a platform. It requires sincerity. It requires inner stillness. It requires the willingness to say less and mean more. To speak like the wind moves through bamboo. To say only what the moment calls for. To know when to speak and when to return to silence. Because silence in Taoist wisdom is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of everything. It is the ground from which truth emerges. And words, when rooted in silence, become sacred. So ask yourself, is your speech an extension of your ego or your essence? Are your words ripples of harmony or waves of resistance? Are you trying to be understood, or are you offering understanding? The Tao does not speak, and yet all things follow it. You do not need to speak more loudly. You need only to speak more truthfully. Now we arrive at the final threshold in our journey. We have walked through temples, chants, mantras, prayers, whispers, codes, and commands. We have remembered what the ancients knew, and what we are slowly learning to honor once again. And now, it is time to return to the breath, to the voice, to the word, to the ancient voice code within you. You've journeyed through temples and deserts, through chants and silences, through hidden scripts and whispered prayers. You've listened to the voices of sages, priests, shamans, mystics, healers, and poets from every corner of the earth. And in every tradition, one truth stands like an ancient pillar beneath it all. The word is power. The voice is creation. The breath is sacred. This is not philosophy. This is not belief. This is not poetic abstraction. This is the spiritual technology of our ancestors, revered, protected, feared, and encoded into rituals, alphabets, languages, and chants. In ancient Egypt, the Logos was more than a concept. It was the mind of the divine made audible. The scribe god Thoth did not build the world. He named it. To name was to invoke, to give life, to awaken. And the priests knew this. They chanted not for effect, but to vibrate reality into order. Their hieroglyphs were not art. They were spells. In the Jewish mystical tradition, the Hebrew letters were living energies. The Sefer Yetzirah taught that the universe was spoken into being by combining these 22 frequencies, the building blocks of reality. To speak a letter was to summon a force. To pronounce a sacred name was to pierce the veil between worlds. And those who studied these patterns understood that silence was not the opposite of speech. It was the womb from which speech emerged. The Vedas of India spoke of Vak, the goddess of speech, older than the gods, mother of sound. The mantra was not just a word, it was a sound current encoded with divine force. When the sages chanted Om, they weren't reciting. They were merging with the frequency of the cosmos. Each syllable of a mantra carried intention, geometry, and resonance. The voice, when guided by breath and concentration, could heal, transform, and liberate. The shamans of the earth remembered. In the jungles of the Amazon, the Icaros are not composed, they are received. Sung into being by the plants, the stars, the spirits. These chants are frequencies that dissolve shadows and recalibrate the soul. In the mountains, deserts, and forests, indigenous people knew that to speak was to direct energy, that the voice, when in harmony, was medicine. Christian mysticism, so often misunderstood, holds the Logos as the very embodiment of the divine. The Word became flesh, not just as a figure of speech, but as a revelation. Jesus healed with phrases, not rituals. His miracles were spoken into motion. The early mystics knew that prayer, blessing, and confession were acts of vibrational alignment, that to speak with faith was to restructure matter. In the Pacific, the Huna tradition preserved the understanding of mana, the spiritual power of the word. Speech that flowed from alignment with Pono, the sacred harmony of being, carried force. Ho'oponopono was not a practice of repetition. It was a spiritual technology to cleanse relationships, release karmic entanglements, and restore flow. Every "I love you," spoken with sincerity, was an offering of mana. The Toltecs named this power with fierce clarity: be impeccable with your word. Because the word is magic. Because the word is the spell. They knew that careless speech breeds suffering, and intentional speech brings liberation. To gossip is to poison your own energy. To speak truth is to reclaim your power. Every sentence they taught is either a key or a cage. The Sufis of Islam remembered through beauty. Through dhikr, the repetition of the names of God, their breath became remembrance. their chants, their poetry, their silent ecstasies. These were not emotional expressions. They were ways of polishing the mirror of the heart until the voice became a flute for the beloved. And the word kun, be, remained the original command. One syllable, infinite worlds. The Taoists taught us that silence is the truest sound, that words are best used sparingly, carefully, when they rise naturally from the stillness within. Speech that flows from alignment with the Tao does not control, it reveals. It does not manipulate, it harmonizes. Even the 6 healing sounds, subtle vibrations for each organ, reflect that sound is meant to restore, not distort. So now, you know, not as a concept, but as a lived memory. You know that your voice is not an accident, that your words are not neutral, that your speech is not background noise. It is the music through which your soul shapes reality. The ancients did not take this lightly. They fasted before ceremony. They purified their thoughts before chanting. They honored silence as deeply as they honored speech, because they understood the sacred tension between the two. You live in a world of noise now, where words are cheap, where language is transactional, where the spell is cast carelessly, over and over until we forget we are the ones casting it. But you are remembering. You are remembering that what you say matters, that the stories you tell about yourself, even in passing, shape your future, that the way you speak to others imprints their energy field, that the names you call things, your job, your body, your past, carry vibration, that every I am is a declaration to the universe. I am tired, I am behind, I am broken, or I am learning, I am returning, I am becoming. The voice obeys the mind, but the body obeys the voice, and the world responds to both. This is the ancient voice code, and it's not just for monks or mystics or medicine men. It's for you. It always has been. So what now? Now you pause. You breathe. You listen before speaking. You refine your inner dialogue. You speak less, but with more weight. You offer silence where noise would only confuse. You speak truth where lies would protect the ego. You bless where judgment would be easier. You choose the word that liberates. You don't need to get it perfect, you only need to get it real. Because when you speak with alignment, your body responds, your path clears, your energy expands, and those around you feel it. You become a tuning fork, you become a clear channel, you become someone whose words don't just sound different, they change things. So speak. Speak like someone who knows. Speak like the ancients. Speak like the future depends on it, because it does. This journey does not end here. It begins here. If this video spoke to something deep in you, there is more waiting. Explore our other episodes on Hermetic wisdom, the geometry of the soul, the laws of vibration, and the mysteries yet to be named. Like this video, subscribe, share it with those whose voice you trust, and most of all, use your own voice wisely, because the next reality begins the moment you speak it, say it, and reality shifts. We'll see you in the next transmission.